convene this meeting. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I have 5 p.m. Today is Wednesday, July 21st, 2021. And this is the regular Board of Directors meeting for East Bay Community Energy. We're meeting via teleconference through waivers set forth by the governor's shelter-in-place order, which I believe those waivers on the Brown Act extend through September 31st. So for the time being, we're still on teleconference. And when we come back to in person, we'll be sure to give everyone a good deal of notice before that. But in the meantime, here we are. I will turn it over to our clerk to please call the roll.
Yes. Alameda County.
Here.
Albany. Albany. Berkeley. Berkeley. Dublin. Dublin. Fremont.
Here. Teresa Cox.
Thank you. Hayward.
Present.
Livermore.
Here.
Newark. Newark. Hold on one second. I'm just moving someone over. Piedmont. Piedmont. Pleasanton.
Here.
Thank you. Tracy. Tracy.
Present.
Thank you.
Present.
Union City.
Present.
Thank you. Community Advisory Committee.
Present.
San Leandro.
Present.
And Emeryville.
And I am here. Thank you very much and welcome to our alternate from the city of Tracy to the meeting. And
Thank you.
Oakland's here. I don't think I was called. Oakland's here.
Yes. Thank
yes,
you.
Oakland's here. And you know, I don't know if that we're remiss in doing this, but I see that there isn't a public comment section before closed session, and I want to make sure that the public is offered the opportunity to comment on our closed session item. So I will check to see with our clerk to see if anyone has submitted a speaker card or an electronic comment for this item before we check with the attendees.
Yes, we have one speaker signed up for public comment.
Is it pertaining to the public employee performance evaluation?
It is signed up to the regular public comment section.
Okay,
Not
so
to
the regular, I will open public comment again on item 5 where it is indicated on the agenda. I just want to make sure that folks know if you're joining us via Zoom that you have an opportunity to comment on closed session item number 3A. And if you're joining us via Zoom, please use the raise hand feature to be recognized. Or if you're calling in on the phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. And as I've been notified by several members that they have a hard out this evening, I'm going to be limiting public comment. So let's give the raised hand 1 minute, please.
Okay, great. Hold on one second. I'm changing it to 1 minute. And I'm going to recognize Blair Beekman for 1 minute.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Happy July 2021. This hopefully will only take a minute. I wanted to comment on the closed agenda item today. Just a thank you that you're actually offering public comment for the closed session agenda. I don't think you've really ever done that before. I'm not sure if you have. And there's not really any cards available, you know, that I'm supposed to prepare for this public comment time. Maybe in the future you could develop that sort of system. Overall, just a thank you that you are offering public comment before your closed session, and thanks for hearing me, and good luck in this process. Thanks.
Thank you, Speaker. And I would just ask that General Counsel just please advise the board as to the proper order for public comment and closed session for future agendas, just so we stay in order. Do you want to say something, Inder?
Oh, no, I'd be happy to do so. But of course, yes, you need to have comment on every item on the
Very good. So, I can discuss this with the CEO, whether or not we want to just, when we have closed session, we move closed session after the general public comment, just so it's encapsulated at the same time. So let's talk about that for future agenda items. And at this time, we will, colleagues will adjourn to our closed session. You should have received Kate Harrison from Berkeley is here. Please note that she is in attendance.
Right.
I know she had another meeting that she had to be at, but our clerk will note your attendance. You should have a Google Meet link for us to meet in closed session. We will go there and then we will return and report out of that meeting at this regular link. So see you all in a few moments. Hey folks, we're just
Adrian,
Yes.
just wanted to check that you got the email from the Piedmont representative about the closed session. I know that it got sent. I saw it, and I just want to make sure you have it. So,
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to put up a sign.
well, Mick
Section.
indicated that you should use the closed session credentials, but I actually didn't even see her in the main one, so I'm not quite sure.
Hold on one second. I'm
Hannah
checking my mail now.
McCarthy. So,
Yes, I believe that she is in the closed session.
okay.
I
All right.
admitted it.
No problem then. Just wanted to check. Thanks.
Great. So I'm going to put up a sign that indicates that we're in closed session.
Okay. It looks like representative from the county, Richard Valley,
Yes.
he's still visible here. So I don't know if he's in closed session yet.
No, I'm having trouble. I don't see the link on my emails. I'm sorry.
Let me send it to you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Yes. And I should send it to you as well, Member Davis.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Great.
Hi, this is Councilmember Kick. I'm still having a hard time getting into closed session. It's on Google Meet, correct?
That is correct. I haven't tried logging onto it myself.
I fear that I might need to rejoin the closed session. But I have texted Chair Martinez to see if I can rejoin to see if I need to, as the initiator of the meeting, admit people to the meeting.
Let people in. Okay.
Yeah. But I'm just waiting to hear back from her.
Okay, thanks.
Adrian, to the extent the chair doesn't respond to you, if she might be busy in conversation.
And so any opinions that I'd be sharing would be on his behalf. I just wanted to let the board
Adrian,
know that
I think there's audio coming from
Adrian, we can hear. Yeah, we can
Right.
hear.
I left the meeting. Okay.
Adrian, we are filtering back in. Let me know when we have a quorum, and I will go ahead and report out of closed session.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome back, everybody. We're just giving members some time to filter back in before we report out of closed session.
Okay, I think we have a quorum now.
Very good, thank you. Welcome back, everybody. This is the regular meeting of East Bay Community Energy. We are reporting out of closed session item 3A. And I'm actually going to invite myself to report out of closed session because I did not require the services of our general counsel, and I will report that there were no reportable actions taken at the closed session. So that will take us to item 5. This is public comment, and noting the hour and the requests that I've received previously from members who have a hard stop on this meeting, I'm going to limit public comment to 1 minute. So folks should have had time to submit an electronic speaker slip at this time. I will turn to our clerk to see if we have received any electronic comments or whether anyone is signed up to speak. And I will remind those attending via Zoom that you can use the raise hand feature in Zoom to be recognized, or if you're calling in, press *9 to electronically raise your hand. And I see a note that Dan Kalb is an attendee. If you could please promote him.
He just did. I'm here. Thanks.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And Mr. Clerk, are there any speakers for general public comment?
In just 1 second, I am checking now. And we have one speaker for public comment, Blair Beekman. I can recognize him for 1 minute.
Speaker Beekman, you have 1 minute.
Okay, hold on 1 second.
Hi, Blair Beekman here to try to work under a minute. For the future of closed session meetings, it's a nice idea that's being offered for the future of it. Is there a way that you, when you announce closed session, you can announce how long the meeting will possibly be? I can give a nice prep for the public, what they can expect. About your consent calendar items tonight and your item 18, for your consent calendar items, thank you incredibly for your bill forgiveness program that you're doing. A nice reminder that you've started some really good subsidy ideas at EBCE. Don't be afraid to share those ideas with the everyday public and low-income community. It can do a lot at this time, and how we're deciding the future of our subsidy process. Good luck how to do that. Thank you a lot for item 18. You know, you're just giving good examples how we can prepare ourselves for good renewables in the next few years. And that's an awesome thing to do. It offers something really constructive, and that constructive idea and thinking is important for ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. And I'll note that it's very hard to tell how long closed sessions are going to take, but I certainly, if I have a clue, I will try to indicate that to the public. I think that's certainly not a bad idea. So moving along from public comment, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment portion of this meeting and bring us to the consent agenda. Folks, if with your permission, I'm going to try to fly through some things unless anyone has any specific questions or would like to pull an item, I would appreciate a motion on the consent agenda.
I'd like to make the motion.
Is there
Motion
a second?
approved. Oh.
Second. I have a motion by Member Patino, a second by Member Harrison. Please call the roll.
Yes. Albany.
Yes.
Alameda County.
Aye.
Berkeley.
Yes.
Hold on for 1 second.
I was asked to hold on for 1 second.
I think that might have been, I think they might have been talking to someone else. Member
Okay.
Harrison, did we get a yes from Berkeley?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Dublin. Fremont.
Here, Teresa Cox.
Is this a yes for the consent agenda? Or your
Yes.
vote for the consent agenda? Okay.
Yes.
Hayward.
Yes.
Livermore.
Yes.
Newark.
Aye.
Oakland.
Aye.
Piedmont.
Aye.
Pleasanton.
Aye.
Tracy. Tracy. Union City.
Yes.
San Leandro. San Leandro, yes. And Emeryville.
Aye. Thank you. That passes unanimously amongst those present, which will move us to the CEO report. And Nick, I'll just indicate that I've had a couple of board members let me know, and a couple of them have already dropped off, but some folks have some hard stops tonight. So to not lose quorum, I encourage brief
You know what I'm going
presentations
to
where
do here?
possible.
So this is a pretty quick. I don't have the only thing I want to share in the context of the CEO report. I'm just trying to pull it up. Is I did want to introduce a new member of the EBCE team, Karen. I'm just pulling it up. Karen Lee. Karen Lee joined us a couple weeks ago. Oh gosh. Karen Lee joined us a couple weeks ago as a Senior Power Resources Associate, providing project valuations and analytical support. Prior to EBCE, she contributed to project development, engineering, and financing for over 2,000 megawatts of utility scale renewable energy projects for Cypress Creek Renewables. Karen holds a Bachelor's of Science in Chemical Engineering from UCLA and a Master's degree in Energy Technology from the Universidad Politécnica de Valencia. She is a licensed professional engineer in the state of California. Welcome, Karen.
Welcome, Karen. Thank you so much. I just wanted to check in with our general counsel. Do we need to take public comment on information items? Because I'd like to move along if we don't.
No need to take public comment on the CEO's report.
Okay, thank you very much. That will bring us next. Colleagues, are there any questions or comments on the CEO report? Okay, thank you. That'll bring us next to our Community Advisory Committee report. Do we have our Community Advisory Chair with us? Hi, Mary, welcome.
Hi, so I have a very short report as well today. So one of the outcomes of the CAC work that we've been doing with staff on environmental and social justice metrics is going to be a public meeting that's going to occur on Thursday, September 2nd from 6 to 8 p.m. So staff is contracted with EJ Solutions to facilitate this meeting. And at this time, they'll discuss possible metrics for environmental and social justice program efforts on behalf of EBCE. So JP is actually spearheading this and getting this in place. So there will be more information available, but you could get it on your calendars now. If you want to participate, it's open to the public September 2nd, 6 to 8 p.m. It's a Thursday. That's it.
Thank you so much, Mary. I know this is a board that appreciates data-driven movement. So this work is invaluable, considering the tenets that we hold for this organization. So thank you. Great work. Colleagues, any questions? Nope, seeing none. Now we move on to our action items. We have our prepaid transaction review and approval, which we have a lot. You might have noticed we had, I think, an 896 page agenda packet this time around. However, all of these items have been brought before the board before, so it's not new news for those of us on the board, although for members of the public who might have downloaded this agenda, you might have been, had some shock. But I will turn it over to our COO, Howard Chang, to present on this item.
Thank you, Chair. Item 16, as noted, is an action item. It is to approve the EBC to move forward on our prepaid transaction. Despite it being a 438-page item, the presentation is only about a dozen pages, and I'll try to move quickly through it since we have now reviewed this on a number of occasions with the board, with the subcommittee, the FAP, and executive committee. Just one quick note, we do have a couple of our advisors and consultants as attendees, Mike Berwanger with PFM, who's our financial advisor, and actually don't see his name, but Doug Bird, as part of Chapman Cutler, our counsel, is intending to join as well, so he may just be a little behind. But in any event, I just wanted to note that they're online. To the extent there are any questions afterwards from the board, they can assist in fielding any of those, in addition to myself, of course. So Adrian, next slide, please. This is just the agenda to go through, but I'm going to touch on most of these rather quickly, given most of this is repetition from before. So next slide, Adrian. The overview itself, the energy prepayment is a long-term, non-recourse financial transaction between a tax-exempt load-serving entity, EBC of course, and a taxable financial counterparty. In this case, we've chosen Morgan Stanley, and it utilizes the municipal bond market. The structure itself is one that's been applied in the natural gas markets for decades. Relatively newer in the electricity and renewables market, but we're taking the sort of same mechanics and such and applying it just as many municipal utilities have done to gas prepays. It's typically a 30-year transaction. It reprices every 5 to 10 years based off of optimal taxable and tax-exempt spreads. And in essence, what happens is a load-serving entity enters into a 30-year power supply agreement with, in this case, Morgan Stanley, the prepaid supplier. That prepaid supplier is then assigned our existing energy contracts through the prepay structure. We issue bonds through a conduit to raise money as a prepayment, and then ultimately, we as the load-serving entity receive a discount over the life of the transaction. That target discount is approximately 10%, but is dependent on the spread between the taxable and the tax-exempt borrowing costs at the time. Next slide, Adrian. So a couple key elements: our existing renewable energy PPAs or source specified contracts, they can be large hydro. They are assigned through this vehicle. Our contracts continue to perform the way that we have negotiated those agreements. So those continue to remain. There is a limited assignment of rights and energy products that go through the transaction itself, but operationally speaking, everything is unchanged. If the prepay program terminates for any reason, if the prepay supplier fails to perform, if we fail to perform, there's any insolvency issues, the PPAs would be placed back to the LSC. So again, there really is, even though there's a limited assignment of the PPA itself, in essence, the PPA still continues to perform just as it otherwise would have. Last two elements here is that are important. Of course, this is a non-recourse debt, and it is off balance sheet for EBCE. Next slide, please. On the high end of the range, we anticipate total bond proceeds to be about $1.5 billion. That's going to be dependent on the California bond market appetite. I think our estimate as of now is more in the $600 to $800 million range. So quite a bit smaller than that. So that really is sort of a high water mark for what we think is achievable in the market. And what that is ultimately, it's a present value of all of the cash flows that would go through this transaction over 30 years. We've jointly been working on this transaction with Silicon Valley. So we would split whatever those total proceeds are for, in relatively equal portions for our transaction. At the $600 to $800 million estimated bond proceed size, that would equate to approximately $12 to $16 million of annual procurement costs flowing through this. So a sizable number, but still a relatively small proportion of our overall energy procurement costs, which are in the $400+ million range. And given our target discount of about 10%, that would equate, pretty simply to $1.2 to $1.6 million of annual savings to each CCA. Over time, the cash flows actually step up over the 30 years. So in the final years of the transaction, the annual cash flows would be more like $20 to $25 million. As the transaction moves forward, the arbitrage value does go down because it's based off of present value of benefits. So as the remaining tenor becomes shorter and shorter, our anticipated discount would likely go down over the course of 30 years. But again, totally dependent on where taxable and tax exempt spreads are at. The last point here is there is a negotiated minimum discount. And if the prepaid supplier is not able to hit that discount, then we as EBCE can elect not to move forward with the repricing when that time comes. And there is a repricing, as I noted, every 5 to 10 years. That's always based off of where the optimal bond spreads are between taxable and tax exempt rates. Right now, we're anticipating it to be close to about 10 years. So there could be, say, 3 repricings over the life of this. Certainly more over the life if that optimal time frame changes. Next slide, Adrian. So this is the list of counterparties that we're working with, or different prepay parties, I should say, not necessarily counterparties. Our joint prepay buyer is Silicon Valley Clean Energy. We issued the RFP together. I'll note there is no obligation for this transaction to be joint between Silicon Valley and EBCE. We elected to do that because this is one of the first transactions that CCAs are doing in the prepay space. So extra eyes on the diligence, sort of a smaller amount of proceeds for us to take on. So we feel like it was prudent to de-risk in that manner, but there is no transactional requirement that both parties need to be part of this. If for some reason Silicon Valley at some stage elects not to move forward, we can still elect to move forward with the transaction. And then I'll also just note that MCE is one of the other CCAs that is working on this transaction entirely independent from us. We expect them to get to market before us, probably by a month or so. So they're a little ahead of us in this transaction. So most likely when we go out, we won't be the first CCA that does this. Additional parties here, as I mentioned, Morgan Stanley was selected as the prepay supplier. That was through a solicitation that was issued back in November of 2019. So clearly we've been diligencing this transaction and reviewing it for some time now. PFM is our financial advisor. We have 2 different counsels serving us. One is Oric, Harrington, and Sutcliffe. They are the bond and tax counsel. And then Chapman and Cutler, who's our disclosure and issuers counsel. And they also prepared the preliminary offering statement, which is one of the attachments to this item. There's the California Community Choice Financing Authority. That's the JPA that we set up in conjunction with 3 other CCAs, MCE, Silicon Valley, and 3CE. There is a custodian, which is to be selected. There was a solicitation that was issued recently to choose that party. There will be a commodity swap counterparty as well. Again, that solicitation is ongoing. And then lastly, there's a credit rating agency specific to this transaction, not for EBC's credit analysis, but specific to this bond transaction that we'll also select shortly. Next slide, Adrian. So specifically on the approval that we are seeking here, we are requesting authorization to negotiate and execute these 5 documents. These are the documents that EBCE will specifically be a party to. On the next slide, I'll touch on some documents that the issuing conduit will actually execute. So we're not asking for approval to sign those. Those are shared more for informational purposes. The first agreement here really is the primary document. That's the power supply contract. And that is the 30-year agreement that we sign. We actually have the issuing conduit as the counterparty in that case. There is an additional document called the prepaid agreement on the next slide. That's what the issuing conduit signs with Morgan Stanley. So these 2 agreements really mirror each other. We have an agreement with the issuer has an agreement with Morgan Stanley. So everything kind of flows through these 2 contracts. There's also, number 2, there's a letter agreement regarding PPA assignments. So that is signed between EBCE and Morgan Stanley. And that's where we are agreeing to and obligating ourselves to make best efforts to assign our energy contracts through the prepaid transaction. There's a form of limit assignment, which is between EBCE, Morgan Stanley, and then whatever the energy PPA counterparty is. So say it's a solar PPA, we would go work with them to agree to the assignment of the actual PPA to flow through. Number 4 is a project administration agreement. That's between EBCE, Silicon Valley, and CCCFA, the issuing conduit. And this really kind of lays out how we operate with one another and the CCCFA, what authorities we have to make decisions on its behalf. Those are laid out in this agreement. And then the last one is the PPA payments custodial agreement. Again, that bank is to be named. Solicitation is currently active, but that would be between EBCE, Morgan Stanley, and bank. And really that sort of helps them manage and control the different, from PPA buyer, prepay, PPA buyer and prepay supplier and the custodian. Next slide, Adrian. This is a list of documents that the issuing conduit, CCCFA, actually signs. Again, the prepaid agreement, which I touched on already, that is a 30-year agreement, and that one mirrors the power supply contract that I touched on. There's the repricing agreement. This one sets forth the terms as to how the bonds get repriced every 5 to 10 years, and sort of what are the mechanics, the time frame, and all of that for which they'll go back out to market. There's the trust indenture. Those specify the actual bond terms itself. There are the commodity swap documents, and that really swaps fixed to floating and floating to fixed throughout the transaction. A parent guarantee that Morgan Stanley ultimately provides, and then there are some other custodial documents related to the sort of funds flow. Next slide, Adrian. And then the last one here, this is called the preliminary offering statement. As I noted, ORC drafted this, and this is a good document that really kind of summarizes everything. It is still a lengthy document, but it kind of brings together the whole transaction because this is the primary marketing document to the bond investors. Though this is not a signed document. Next slide. So key risks. Fortunately, from my perspective, the risks here, despite it being a fairly large transaction and a debt transaction, they are pretty small. Out-of-pocket expenses, to the extent we don't ultimately move forward on this transaction, are in the 25 to 50K range, and that's really for our various advisors and counsel that we've utilized. But the bulk of the fees are all contingent based and will flow through the proceeds of the bonds themselves. So in that sense, it's very de-risked from a cost perspective. The biggest risk that I see really is the opportunity cost. Is there a better sort of transaction created in the future that better optimizes sort of, utilizing our tax exempt status? And now we have our, significant flows of energy flowing through this transaction that would prevent us from being able to utilize another transaction. That risk is there. It's hard to predict what will happen in the next 30 years regarding tax code and other financial sort of structuring. With that said, we have very significant procurement, and while we do continue to do a few more prepaid transactions, I think it's a fairly low risk that in 5, 10, even 15, 20 years, we would have all of our energy flowing through something like this that would prevent us from doing other types of transactions as well. But it is a risk nonetheless. A few more risks here. Load loss, inability to assign PPAs. There is an obligation for us to do that, though I'll note, to the extent there's load loss or we cannot assign a PPA for some reason, a lot of that risk actually sits on Morgan Stanley, and they have some risk that the bond could collapse and they might have to repay funds. So, contractually, we are obligated to work and use commercially reasonable efforts to get our PPAs through this transaction. Regulatory risks, I've touched on this one before. We have a lot of compliance requirements related to our energy PPAs. SB 350 as an example, or the PCC1 bundled aspect of our RECs. We've had multiple discussions with the CPUC. We feel like this is a fairly small risk, but at the end of the day, compliance rules can change. So there is some risk that there could be some disruption to our compliance products. We do have language throughout our documents that allow us some termination rights to the extent that occurs. And then lastly, political risk. If for some reason the IRS were to rule that this was not on the up and up and the deal would collapse, there is some potential, reputational risk that we should be aware of. Again, I think this is a low risk. Many transactions have been done for decades from other load serving entities, municipal utilities throughout the country. From my understanding, the IRS has never taken a negative ruling on these transactions, but nonetheless, that risk does exist. Next slide, Adrian, just a couple more here and then we'll be through. On the benefit side, I've already touched on this, but it's pretty obvious. It is really a discount to our procurement costs. That's what we are seeking. Structurally, what I want to highlight is two things. This has been done historically in the gas market, and this is a newer application to renewables. Certainly, as given our sort of climate goals, clean energy goals, we're really excited to be able to apply this towards clean energy and obviously be able to bring the same benefits that the gas markets have utilized into renewables. And two, of course, we are a tax exempt entity and we are able to do this type of a transaction. Private for-profit entities such as IOUs, they of course cannot do this. So we see this as a structural advantage for how we can continue to maintain efficient and effective procurement costs and try to get the best discount for our customers at the end of the day. I think the only other notes here are again, the debt is non-recourse. Rating agencies have gotten comfortable with comparable deals. Other entities in California that have done this include SMUD and SCAPA. So large municipal utilities, tax exempt load serving entities in California, and those are just a couple as examples. Next slide, Adrian. So the timeline here is, of course, tonight we are requesting board approval, and Silicon Valley, our co-participant, is requesting their approval in early August. So they're just a couple weeks behind us. They have recess this month. The CCCFA will have its next board meeting actually tomorrow, but we're going to seek approval from the CCCFA board approval in August, and that would be for those other documents that I touched on earlier. And I think I noted this before, but there's no obligation that we would need to move forward with the transaction with Silicon Valley, though that is our intent as we've been working with them from the outset. On the bond raise itself, we would anticipate that to be in late August, early September. Certainly has to come after the CCCFA. Right now, markets are somewhat favorable, so there is an opportunity to go out to market. That's why we're eager to sort of move this transaction and accelerate the process as much as we can, so that we can be enabled and try to execute as we see market conditions presenting themselves. Though with that said, markets do need to continue to be open. They're fairly volatile, so that could impact timing, in addition to assignment of any assignment consents that we may need for any commodities transactions that we have, though those are fairly de-risked, I would say. And the last slide, Adrian. This specifically summarizes our approval itself. So there are 5 contracts here laid out that we're specifically seeking authorization on. And then some parameters around the bond raise, 2 parameters really. One is that the principal amount does not exceed 1.25 billion, and that the annual energy savings, the sort of minimum discount that we seek, is $3 per megawatt hour. The principal amount, 1.25, that actually equates to about 1.5 billion in proceeds, FYI, but that's the principal amount. And on the discount, we do hope that we'll get a higher amount than that. We think $4 is achievable. That's around the 10% level, but we're asking for authorization for slightly lower $4. And that is, that's the presentation. So I'll turn to you for questions.
Thank you, Howard. And I'd like to thank the members of the board and the members of the executive and finance committees for doing a deep dive on all of these issues in advance. So I'll take it to the board for clarifying questions on the presentation. Colleagues, if you have any questions, please go ahead and use the raise hand feature. And if for some reason I'm not recognizing you that way, you can jump in and let me know you have a question. But I'm looking at the panelists list, not seeing any raised hands. So at this time, I'd like to bring it over to the public and check in with our clerk to see if anyone has submitted electronic comment or a speaker slip. As I mentioned earlier in the meeting, we have some members with hard outs. So I am limiting public comment on this item to 1 minute per speaker. Mr. Clerk, has anyone submitted electronic comment?
Yes, we have one comment from Blair Beekman. I'm going to
Okay.
recognize him for 1 minute.
Thank you.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. My Zoom may be cutting out on me, sorry. Thank you for this item. You know, we'll be facing risks in the next few years, but I think if we share what we feel those risks will be, and we really plan and offer what to expect in the next, 2 to 5 to 10 years, I think we can make something clear to Morgan Stanley, to their investors, to that market area. They can really understand what our goals of working towards renewables can be at this time. And we don't have to fall back into economic models of fossil fuel use and all that stuff. We can use fossil fuel use if we need it for emergency situations, but we don't have to create a whole new economy based on fossil fuels. We can really, really work towards our renewable energy future. And I hope Morgan Stanley, it's an interesting choice to do that with. Good luck in our efforts with this work and what it can bridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. And seeing no further hands raised, I'll go ahead and conclude public comment on this item and bring it back to our board for discussion. And I will take your names in order. Member Hannon.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll make this real quick. I want to thank Nick and Howard for an outstanding effort. It's always appreciative when staff bring items before us where they've investigated, they've researched, and they bring opportunities which will ultimately result in savings to this organization, and hopefully at the end of the day, future savings to our customers. So with that, I enthusiastically make a motion that we support the resolution as proposed by staff.
I'll second it.
Very good. I'm sorry, who was the second from?
Narum.
Narum. So we have a motion by member Hannon and a second by member Narum. Thank you for that. Colleagues, is there any further discussion on this item? I see no more hands raised, so we have a motion on the table, and I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Great, thank you. Alameda County. Alameda County. Albany.
Yes.
Berkeley.
Yes.
Dublin.
Yes.
Fremont.
Yes.
Hayward. Hayward.
Sorry, yes. Yes.
Great, thank you. Livermore.
Yes.
Newark.
Yes.
Oakland.
Aye.
Piedmont.
Yes.
Pleasanton.
Aye.
Tracy. Tracy. Union City.
Aye.
San Leandro.
Aye.
And Emeryville.
And it's a very enthusiastic aye from the chair. And I'll have to say that was the fastest item with a $1.25 billion cap that I have ever witnessed in my tenure as a city council member or a chair of any organization. So colleagues, again, a deep gratitude to all of you, because this is, like I said, this has come before us many times. And I'm so pleased to be on an equal playing field with the natural gas market. We should get at least what they're getting in terms of financial recompense. So that will move us on to our next item. And forgive me while I scroll. We are on to item 17. This is the reimbursement resolution for the financing of our office building purchase. I'm turning it over to staff for a presentation.
Yep, this will be a very quick one. Item 17 is an action item for where we are seeking approval of a resolution declaring EBCE's intent to incur debt to reimburse the cost of purchasing real property for an office site at 251 A Street in Oakland. As the board knows, we are in the process of purchasing a building in downtown Oakland, 251 8th Street. We are intending to do that initially with a cash purchase and then follow that up with a refinancing probably in the months to follow, estimated in the October-December timeframe, though that is tentative. We're in the process of evaluating a couple different financing structures, such as a conventional mortgage or a lease-leaseback type structure. This reimbursement certificate would allow us to do that refinancing on a tax-exempt basis. We may not actually do it on a tax-exempt basis, depending on actual interest costs, but this would allow us to do so. So we wanted to pass this to ensure that we had that option to the extent we wanted to do a tax-exempt refinancing in the future. One other thing of note is, in addition to this action, of course, when we actually, assuming we do intend to ultimately refinance this, we would, of course, bring an additional item to the board to actually approve that financing. And we would additionally need to actually take that to a local agency with jurisdiction over the office site. So that would either be City of Oakland or Alameda County in this case, based off the location of the building. And that is the extent of the item.
Very good. Colleagues, are there any questions on this item? I will be looking for raised hands. Okay, seeing no questions at this time from the board, I will bring it over to public comment. Mr. Clerk, has anyone submitted a speaker card or public comment, or are there any hands raised? And I'll remind speakers, if you're joining us via Zoom, use the raise hand feature in Zoom to be recognized, or if you're calling in, press *9.
Yes, we have one raised hand from Blair Beekman. I can recognize him for would you like 1 minute?
1 minute, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Blair Beekman here. Just like to congratulate yourselves. It sounds like a good purchase of a building. A lot of initial community energy ideas for the Bay Area, I think, came out of East Bay Mud and in the area. And it's a terrific program, and study session that's been going on for decades from East Bay Mud, I think. So it's kind of interesting. You're situating yourself in the same area. It'll be close to BART, which is really great. And I like it that it's by Chinatown. And it'll just give me good thoughts of carrying on a good tradition from all the years of study for good community energy ideas for the Bay Area. So thank you for your decision. Good luck.
Thank you, Speaker. I'll go ahead and conclude public comment for this item on the agenda and bring it back to my colleagues to see if there is any discussion or if there is a motion on the resolution. I will recognize.
I will move.
Oh, go ahead, Member Vice Chair Lopez.
Thank you. I will move the item.
Thank you.
Second, I'm happy to second it.
And it's a second motion by Member Lopez and a second by Member Kalb. So were there any further comments? I thought I saw another hand, but if it was just to make a motion, we have one on the table. I don't see any other hands raised for comments, so I will turn it over to the clerk to please call the roll.
Yes. Alameda County. Albany.
Yes.
Berkeley.
Yes.
Dublin.
Yes.
Fremont.
Yes.
Hayward.
Yes.
Livermore.
Yes.
Newark.
Aye.
Oakland.
Aye.
Oakland. Yes. Piedmont.
Yes.
Pleasanton.
Aye.
Tracy. Tracy. Union City.
Aye.
San Leandro.
Aye.
And Emeryville.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. That will bring us to our next item. Thank you, colleagues, for helping us move these weighty items rapidly so we can accommodate everyone's schedules tonight. We are moving on to Power Resources RFO contract approval, and I will turn it over to staff for a presentation.
Thank you, Chair Martinez.
There he is. Marie.
This is sort of a continuation of the topic that I brought to you last month. And so in the interest of time, there are probably there are a few slides that I can probably skip over. We are bringing the second stage or the second wave of projects for board approval for the CEO to finalize negotiations and execute contracts from our 2020 renewable energy and energy storage resource RFO. Next slide. So this is an overview of the 4 projects that we are seeking approval to execute. I'll go into each project in subsequent slides so we can skip ahead. This is an overview of the solicitation. We did discuss this last month, so I'll skip this in the interest of time. We discussed the number of participants that we had in the RFO last month. I can skip over this one. And we also discussed the evaluation process, and I think we can move on to the next slide. Now we're getting into details of the individual project, so I'll go through each of these with more detail. The first project is developed by Pattern Energy. We're seeking authority to execute a 10-year contract for 100 megawatts of a wind farm that is sited in New Mexico. It's called the Tecalote wind farm. And we're seeking authority to execute only a portion of the total wind farm under contract with EBCE. So the total wind farm is a 272 megawatt project. We're only seeking to procure 100 megawatts of it. This project is already in the development process. It has executed interconnection agreement and site control, and it will actually come online at the end of 2021. So it's a relatively de-risked project from the construction standpoint. And although the project is located in New Mexico, the developer is utilizing union labor and they're paying New Mexico prevailing wages. Pattern does also intend to make a contribution to EBCE's Community Investment Fund. And that is actually the case with all 4 projects tonight. Next slide, please. Pattern is a very experienced developer. They are a privately owned company, and they're a privately owned company. They operate wind, solar, and energy storage and transmission assets throughout North America and Japan. And to date, they have 1 project under contract with CCAs, but they have extensive experience with California utilities. Next slide, please. The next project is an energy storage project called Sanborn. It will be executed with TerraGen. This is a 47 megawatt capacity, 188 megawatt hour battery that will be in Kern County. It will neighbor a contract or a project that EBC already has under contract, also with TerraGen. This project is sited on Edwards Air Force Base, and the project we already have with TerraGen is called Edwards Solar. The proximity of the storage to the solar is one of the things that's desirable about this project. EBCE will have full operational control of this battery, and we can use the storage to hedge the solar project. This will be a 12-year contract. It is what we refer to as a tolling structure contract. And what that means is that in this structure, as I said, EBCE has full operational control of the battery. We are entitled to everything that the battery can do. So all products and attributes, its ability to charge and discharge. So we'll get the project's value, the battery's value to perform energy arbitrage. What makes this a quote unquote toll contract or a toll structure is that EBCE is responsible to pay for what is the fuel supply of this. In this case, it's the charging electricity or the electricity to charge the project that we then use to discharge. We plan to optimize the battery so that we charge during the lowest cost hours. And then we intend to, and I should note that hopefully those will be hours when prices are negative. So we would actually be paid to charge the battery. And then we will discharge during what we expect to be the highest price hours. The project is expected to come online in June of 2022. There is a little bit of risk of delay with this one because there are so many megawatts of capacity coming online in the same area. The CAISO is doing an extra study. We are not concerned about the project eventually coming online. We just recognize the counterparty let us know that there is a slight risk of delay. And so we've included a unique clause in this contract that if the CAISO does require the additional study process, and if that takes long, TerraGen will sell us what we're referring to as bridge resource adequacy. So we will still get the resource adequacy value from a new project that is owned by TerraGen. And so that's TerraGen's way of keeping us whole on some of our resource adequacy compliance requirements that we have coming up over the next few years. So that's a unique attribute of this particular contract. Next slide. TerraGen is an experienced developer, and as they've done deals with other CCAs. Most notably, they've done a deal with us. And in 2015, they were purchased by Energy Capital Partners, so they are a well-funded developer. Next slide, please. The next project is with Clearway. It's called the Daggett Project, and it is located in San Bernardino County. We seek to execute a 15-year contract with this project. It is a 50 megawatt solar project and 12.5 megawatts of storage with 50 megawatt hours of energy storage. It's part of a larger development at this site, but we will only be an off-taker on a portion of the project, and we will have operational control over the solar and the storage. It's worth noting that for a period of time, the storage will only be able to charge from the solar facility. And this is actually a requirement so that the storage portion of the project can benefit from the investment tax credit. However, in the later years of the contract, the storage will actually be able to charge from the grid, if we decide that that is optimal. This project is expected to come online in March of 2023, and it already has site control and CEQA permits. Next slide. Clearway is a very experienced company, and it's worth noting that EBCE already has a contract with Clearway for our Rosamond project, and that was actually EBCE's first project to come online and become operational. It started delivering energy for us in January of this year. Next slide. Our last project is from a developer called Intersect Power. This is another solar plus storage project. It's located in Riverside County, but it's different from the previous project structure because we're not going to take operational control of this project. So we're not getting all attributes, if you will, from this. What we're procuring here is an indexed energy structure, so indexed renewable energy and resource adequacy. So we will not get the energy arbitrage value from the battery. We are just procuring the ability of the project to provide resource adequacy. This will be a 15-year, the contract will be for 15 years for the indexed energy and 10 years for the resource adequacy. Next slide, please. And Intersect, I should note, is a younger organization, but they are comprised of a very experienced team, and EBCE has already executed an RA-only contract with Intersect for the Aramis project, which is located actually in Alameda County. Next slide. This is an overview of where the projects are in the state of California, and then the project that's in New Mexico. And I think we can pretty much wrap things up here. The next slide is just a reminder of what projects EBCE has already executed and which are coming online. And yep, that's it for tonight.
Very good. Thank you, Marie. I would like to bring this back to the board for clarifying questions and give deference to Member Harrison, because I know we're going to lose her in 8 minutes. So board, are there any clarifying questions for?
No, but thank you for asking. I appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you. If there are no questions from the board, I will bring it to public comment, and I will rely on our clerk to let me know if anyone has submitted a speaker card or if There are any attendees waiting with raised hands. I am afraid I cannot see the attendees list due to a glitch at the moment. So I will remind the public that if you're using Zoom, please use the raised hand feature to be recognized, or press *9 to raise your hand. And I will rely on our clerk to go ahead and allot the 1 minute speaker time to each speaker.
Yes, we have one speaker signed up for this item. I'm going to recognize Blair Beekman for 1 minute.
Hi, thank you. Sorry, I didn't quite fill out a card for this one. Thank you for acknowledging myself. For this item, this was explained at CAC on Monday. Thank you for it. I was part of a series of, you're offering like your really good renewable ideas this month of July and on our choices. It can make a great reference in our future when we need to refer to renewables, and when we're going to be talking to people about the future of AB 1139 and what the CPUC is apparently doing. I don't know what that is, but to have this sort of references to bring to them, it'll be important. So thank you very much for your items this month of July. I wanted to quickly offer Jack London Square. It was announced that they will not, PG&E will not be going through battery storage procedures. They're going to continue with a diesel storage program. I mean, that's the definition of uncomfortable, unhealthy practices. Why are they working that way? I hope we can work on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Mr. Clerk, are there any other folks waiting with raised hands, or may I go ahead and close public comment?
There are no further speakers for this item.
Thank you. I will close public comment on this item at this time and bring it back to the board. And I just want to thank Marie and her whole team for their work on this issue. And I have a lot of faith in the process that staff went through. I do see a hand raised by Mary Sutter, and I would like to recognize you now.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring back, this was one of the items that the CAC actually voted on in terms of whether or not we wanted to provide you all with our thoughts about support or not. And it passed unanimously. So the CAC was very much in support of these projects. We did have other conversation that happened. We had a lot of information that Howard, who presented this to us, really helped understand about transmission costs. Because a lot of the folks that were involved there were interested in that. And we also had a few CAC members who wanted to bring forward the fact that, you know, these are outside of Alameda County, still looking forward to other and more projects within Alameda County. That's it. Thank you.
Very good. Colleagues, is there anyone else who wishes to comment on this item? Otherwise, I just received confirmation from my general counsel that we can take up these 4 resolutions as one motion. So if there is a member who is interested in making such a motion to pass these resolutions, I would be happy to entertain that at this time.
So move.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Member Cox and a second from Member Patino, and I'll turn to the clerk to please call the roll.
Yes. Roll. So Alameda County. Alameda County. Albany.
Yes.
Berkeley.
Yes.
Dublin.
Yes.
Fremont.
Yes.
Hayward.
Yes.
Livermore.
Yes.
Newark.
Aye.
Oakland.
Aye.
Piedmont.
Yes.
Pleasanton. Tracy. Union City.
Aye.
San Leandro.
Aye.
Emeryville.
Hearty aye from the chair, and I thank you, colleagues, for your brevity on all of these issues. I know we've got a couple of people who are heading to other meetings very shortly, but I want to open it up to the next item to see if there are any member comments or requests for future agenda items, and I'll open this up to staff too if there are any parting comments that anyone has. And seeing none, I see no hands raised. Just want to thank everyone for this was a very meaty meeting. We got a lot done. And if anyone for some reason printed out their agenda packet, you may now recycle it and return it back to the earth. But I hope you didn't print it out. But everyone, thank you. Enjoy a well-deserved summer break. We will reconvene East Bay Community Energy meetings in September. And Mary, is this the last time that we get to see you?
Possibly. We are going to hold elections in September, and you may have a new person in October, but I may be on vacation in September. So you may see Jane instead of me. I'm still working exactly where I'll be in terms of within the US and whether or not I'll be able to get on the internet.
Well, you have a well-deserved break coming up, and I would be remiss if I didn't have the opportunity to thank you for your leadership at the CAC. The tenor of the CAC really got straightened out when you came on board, and I appreciate the way that you operate and your expertise, your collegiality, and you run a good meeting, and I have a deep appreciation for all the work that you've done for the agency. So thank you, Mary, and
Thank you
congratulations.
all. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And good night, everyone. Aloha, signing off from Oahu.
Night.
Bye. Thank you. Aloha. Bye.